In the depths of the Russian Arctic, there is a silence that tells stories. Stories of love, of loss, and of a woman. A woman forgotten by maps, but remembered by the winds. For 94 winters, she faced the ice and destiny. While the world rushed on outside, she remained there, steadfast, among reindeer and memories. But what leads someone to choose absolute isolation? What remains when everything one loves turns into frozen memory? This is the journey of an indomitable soul. The journey. In the far east of Russia, there lived a woman whose story blends with the eternal snows of Yakutia. Her name was Kuni. Today, at 94 years old, she is the last guardian of a life forged in the white silence of the Arctic mountains. But it was not always like this. There was a time when Kuni was the center of every gaze in her village. When young, her beauty was like the summer sun breaking through thick clouds, rare, radiant, unforgettable. The young men of the village competed for her attention with gifts, serenades, and lingering looks in the frozen fish markets. Kuni, however, never allowed herself to be seduced by the games of youth. She had a free spirit, a wild soul like the snow-covered fields that surrounded her land. It was only at 20 years old that her heart was captured. Not by a young man, but by a 35-year-old man named Pavel. Tall, with eyes the color of the sky before a storm, Pavel was a reindeer herder. And, as he himself used to say, more than hunting or trading, he knew how to love. The two fell in love amid the white silence of the mountains. The love between Kuni and Pavel was like a fire burning in the tundra. Warm, resilient, constant. It did not take long for them to marry, and, driven by the desire to build a life far from the bustle of the village, they decided to move to an even more remote place. A perfect life. Pavel built a log house on the slope of a frozen mountain, an isolated refuge surrounded only by the boreal forest and a herd of 25 reindeer. It was there that they created a life of simplicity and love. Every day Pavel woke before the sun, when the sky was still a blanket of stars and the cold made the wood of the house crack. He went out to care for the reindeer with steady hands and silent steps. Kuni, by his side, prepared tea, sewed fur clothing, and kept the house warm. In the morning, she helped her husband with the reindeer. In the afternoon, she arranged the home, cleaned the wood-burning stove, and wove stories into the silent walls of the cabin. They were never able to have children. Every winter, they waited for the good news that never came. They tried, they waited, they cried. And finally, they accepted. Instead of children, they had shared silences, laughter by the fireplace, and reindeer that received names and were treated as part of the family. Time passed slowly, like snow falling without haste. Pavel and Kuni grew old together, there in the same home, with the same customs, the same reindeer. Each year, the herd changed, but their love remained the same. A silent love, like the wind whispering among the frozen trees. The beginning of solitude. At At 90 years old, Pavel passed away. He went to sleep on a quiet winter night and never woke again. No pain, no warning, just the peaceful sleep of someone who had lived everything he needed to live. Kuni woke beside him, and upon noticing his cold body, did not cry. She simply embraced him one last time, with the serenity of someone who understands that even the strongest love one day turns into memory. At 75 years old, widowed, Kuni made a decision. She would not leave. That house, those reindeer, that mountain, everything was part of her, part of Pavel, part of the story she did not want to forget. The nearest neighbors, who lived 2 days away by sled, tried to convince her to move back to the village. But Kuni refused. She preferred solitude to the noise of the world. She preferred the sound of the wind and the rumble of the reindeer to the chatter of men. She spent the following years taking care of everything alone. She fed the reindeer, repaired the house, cut firewood. Her steps were slow, but determined. Her wrinkled face hid the features of the beautiful young woman who once enchanted an entire village. But her eyes remained the same, intense, alive, attentive. As the years passed, the herd grew smaller. Some reindeer died of old age, others were lost in storms. At 94 years old, only 4 remained. 4 reindeer, 1 cabin, and a woman who faced the cold with the courage of someone who had already seen every winter in the world. The end of a cycle. Even with her tired body, Kuni did not give up. Each dawn was a new challenge. Each movement was guided by survival instinct and love for her creatures. She still spoke to Pavel in her thoughts. She told him how the reindeer were, whether the roof was holding up against the snow, whether the wood stove still warmed as it did in the old days. It was on one of those days when the sky closes without warning and the clouds dance with fury that tragedy announced itself. A sudden blizzard fell over the mountain, cutting winds, dense snow, and the entire world covered in white. Hearing the reindeer's cries, Kuni did not hesitate. She put on her old fur coat, covered her head with the lined hood, and stepped out of the cabin. The flakes already blinded her vision. The cold seeped through the gaps in her clothing. Even so, she walked step by step toward the enclosure. She found the reindeer trembling, huddled in one corner. She tried to guide them to the improvised shelter Pavel had built decades earlier. She managed to move 2, then 3. The 4th resisted. Kuni insisted, pulled gently, spoke in a soft voice, as if she were still young. And it was in that effort that her knees gave way. She fell onto the snow, and the storm covered her without mercy. For a time, she still tried to get up, but her time had come. That was not a farewell, but a reunion. Pavel was waiting for her. The cabin, now empty, would hold only memories. The reindeer, silent, would witness the end of an era. And the mountain, eternal, would tell future generations the story of a woman who loved until the end, who lived among the reindeer, who endured like the ice, who departed like the snow, in silence. Kuni is no longer among the living, but her spirit inhabits the winds of Yakutia. Her courage echoes through the mountains, and her love, that remains intact, like the eternal winter she loved so much. Here, life unfolds beneath a layer of ice that lasts up to 9 months per year. Temperatures in winter can drop beyond -50 degrees Celsius. It is not only the cold that is frightening, but the fact that humans are still able to live, work, love and dream in this relentless climate. Daily life is a carefully orchestrated choreography against death by freezing. No metal can be touched without gloves. A blink held too long outdoors can lead to ice forming on the eyelashes.